Hi everyone, my name is Anne. Thanks for tuning in to Art on the Creek. We're in my home studio in Parker, Colorado, and I'm so happy that you've tuned in today. We are coming on the end of the year, which means we're in between that Christmas and New Year kind of time, which is kind of a fun time in our house because we finally get to eat all the chocolate Santas. And that is one of my favorite parts of the Christmas tradition, is getting a chocolate Santa in my stocking. So what I thought we could do today, I've got my Da Vinci watercolors. I've only got Cobalt Blue and Burnt Sienna Deep. We're going to use these two and a white colored pencil, and let's paint a really cute, really delicious looking chocolate Santa. Before we continue though, please subscribe to Art on the Creek if you haven't done so already by clicking on that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell too so that you'll always know when I launch a new tutorial or a product review. Of course, if you do enjoy content like this, make sure that you give it a like, leave a comment, or share it with your friends. If you'd really like to take your art skills to the next level, I would encourage you to consider a membership with Art on the Creek. When you're a member or patron of my channel, your membership includes an extensive library of tutorials covering drawings and paintings of a variety of subjects, not just beautiful Colorado, and also in many different art media. You'll have full and unlimited access to an ever-growing members library of tutorials and reviews, as well as the opportunity to receive guided feedback and critique from me. And also, you'll have direct input into which art technique or medium you'd like to learn more about as a member, as well as access to free art supplies. All of that and more is included in your membership, and it's all very conveniently right here on YouTube. There's a link in the description below that will go over all the membership details. But if you still have any questions, just ask me in the comments and I'll be sure to help you out. Now, let's move on to today's subject, shall we? I will link to a couple of things in the description. I will link to this photo, as well as I have an affiliate link for Da Vinci paints. And through that link, that affiliate link, you can do some shopping on their website if that's something that interests you. They have oil paints, they have watercolors, they have acrylics, they've got aprons, they've got curated sets, they've got all kinds of fun stuff. So check it out if that's something that interests you. And yeah, have a lot of fun with that. And I think during this demonstration, you'll see how great these paints are to use. I really like them a lot. I mean, I think they're very high quality watercolor. I'm going to go ahead and put this burnt sienna over here in this portion of the palette that had a little bit of blue in it, because eventually I'm going to mix the blue. I was going to start with raw sienna, but I decided no, I didn't really want a gold light involved in this. I was thinking maybe I would kind of put some gold around him, but I decided to just leave a white background. I would do that so rarely, and I decided I want to do it this time. The sketchbook that I'm using is a Hahnemuhl Bamboo sketchbook. I love this. It's a mixed media sketchbook, and if you haven't tried it yet, this is my favorite sketchbook to use that is not 100% cotton. It has some cotton in it, but it's not 100% cotton. Keeping the lightest portion of my Santa to the right. In my head, in my mind, the light source is kind of upper right, so I'm just kind of trying to concentrate the pigment on these first washes over here on the left. And right now I'm only going in with burnt sienna. Sometimes I'm doing wet on wet, sometimes I'm just kind of pulling the pigment around, and right about now I'm realizing I probably need to get a bigger brush, but you watch, I'm going to be stubborn and push through this for a little bit. I love this brush so much, and I did end up using it quite a bit. It is the Princeton Aqua Elite number 8 long round, and for me, for the way I paint, this has become my absolute go-to brush. If you guys have watched my channel before, you'll know that Princeton Neptunes are typically my go-to, but this Aqua Elite series, I'm really enjoying this a lot more than the Imitation Squirrel. I will still use them. I will still reach for them. I have the Silver Black Velvets. I like those too. But this one, the Aqua Elite, particularly in the long round, for some reason, this one is just becoming my best friend. So you'll probably see that a lot more in videos going forward. And the coating on the wood is really kind of cool. It's like, it feels soft. I don't know, like it's maybe got a little bit of a silicone coating on it, but I don't know. It's just really, really nice to hold and very easy to work with. Let me talk a little bit about this paint here, the Da Vinci watercolors. Now, they also have gouache. I didn't mention that. I've simply never tried their gouache yet. I kind of landed on Holbein gouache and just kind of stayed there for the amount of gouache I use. But if you guys want me to review some other gouache, just let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to do that for you. This particular paint, though, is transparent, and that's one of the reasons I like it so much. I really like transparency in watercolors because when they're transparent, you can really layer with them and blend really well. That's not to say that I won't use semi-opaque or semi-transparent watercolors, but I really do like using the transparency to my best advantage. So when you're looking at your paint tube, there's a lot of information that you can glean from there other than just the name of a color. For instance, this particular, there I've switched to, I finally broke down and switched to a wider brush. This is the Princeton Snap 3/4 inch stroke brush. I just wanted to get something that had a little wider pass to it. So we're going to use that one for a little bit. At any rate, the pigment information on this particular watercolor is a PBR 7, a pigment brown 7. And I really prefer that type of burnt sienna over the PR 101s. That would be a pigment red 101 that you see. And it's just the way it looks to me. I mean, it's just completely a matter of preference. If you're using a burnt sienna that's a PR 101, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that I prefer the PBR 7. So when Da Vinci makes their paints, they really try and get the highest ingredients. They use very finely milled premium pigments, and they blend it with the finest quality natural gum. So, and their pigments are really concentrated. I mean, these paints have just been so delightful because they're so easy to maintain in their sheerness that makes layering in watercolor really effortless. This particular one has a light fastness rating of 1. And like I said, it's transparent. It is a staining pigment, and there is some granulation. You can probably pick some of it up there as I'm working. But one of the really cool things about Da Vinci paints is that it is available in 8 milliliter, 15 milliliter, and 37 milliliter tube size. So they do have hand-filled pans or tubes, but they've also got, you know, these different sizes of tubes, which I really am delighted with. Now you see there where the color got a little bit darker. I was mixing in some cobalt blue, and again, that's also from Da Vinci. Also excellent light fastness, and this is a PB28, just a basic cobalt blue. To give you some perspective, these are full pans that I have in my palette, and when I purchased this particular set, I just got the 8 milliliter tubes. And I have just a little bit more than half left over in each of the tubes still. So if you're looking to try these paints and you just want to, you know, go in with the smaller tubes, you will have enough to create a really decent palette, plus be able to refill your pans. So, you know, the 8 milliliter tubes are a good investment. It's a great way to familiarize yourself with a brand and a color and see if it's something you want to do more of. I'm doing a lot of wet on wet techniques here, and just really trying to capture all of the ridges that in the mold left from the chocolate, you know, the forms and creases in the mold that give our Santa his shape and all of his features. I'm just kind of trying to get the beard texture in here. I'm having a lot of fun with this paper too. The Hahnemuhl series of paper, all of their papers, I have yet to find one that has fallen short for me. I just really have been delighted with every single one that I've tried. And like I said, this bamboo for mixed media, usually when I see the words mixed media paper, I kind of say no thank you. But this one, and there's actually one other that I really have fallen in love with, a Canson Graduate. And in fact, tomorrow, in tomorrow's video that's coming up, I'm going to review all of the papers that I have. That I've kind of like narrowed them down to my top 10 favorites of my non-cotton, non-100% cotton watercolor papers, because, you know, there are a lot of times when cellulose paper or whatever other fiber it is, sometimes that's what you have and that's what you've got to use. When I very first started in watercolor, I was using Canson XL, and I don't want to speak poorly of something, but it was such a bad experience for me. You know, if you're using it and you love it, great, keep using it. But because it's very affordable, very, very available. But for me, it was just nothing but frustration. So as I'm working on this here, you can see, and remember, I live in Colorado and I'm over 6,000 feet. We have an exceptionally dry climate here. This paper stays wet for me, and it's something that's really, really nice. Now in a mixed media paper, they do tend to dry out a little bit faster, as do your hot press papers as opposed to a cold press. You know, just all of these little factors can really help to change the way that you paint. And there's something that, you know, you need to take into account. If something is really frustrating you a lot in your watercolor, it might be your paper. It might be something that is an easy fix, an easy change. And if you're just using single sheets, what you can do is wet both the front and the back, and then tape it down to your board. Now you can actually, you know, go to the trouble of stretching your watercolor paper and do it that way. But for most of the paintings that I do, and especially here on YouTube, I don't find that that's necessary. What I do like to do is either work off of a block, or if I'm in a sketchbook like this, I just like to have really good paper that's going to cooperate with me. So look for that review tomorrow. It'll post at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. And as usual, all my videos tend to launch at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. And I always put a short up beforehand to let you know that that video is coming. So that one will come tomorrow for Sunday's review. And that is December 31st. Happy New Year. Did everyone have a wonderful Christmas? Or if you didn't celebrate Christmas, whatever December holiday you celebrate, even if it's just cuddling up and drinking cocoa and watching Hallmark Channel, whatever you like to do in these cozy winter months. I hope that everyone has had a really nice couple of weeks. Our daughter, of course, finished her semester at school, and during her finals week, she did come down with a rather nasty little cold, and you might actually be able to still hear it in my voice. I'm sorry. So that was the gift that kept on giving with our family, and yeah, we kind of limped through Christmas, but we ended up having a really good time all together, and I hope everyone was able to do that wherever you are watching this as well. We had just a whole lot of fun. We got a surprise snowstorm, actually. I was checking the Google Maps. I was checking Google Maps because one of our guests was going to head home, and I was going to let him know which road would be better to take, because we have two major highways that are pretty accessible, and one is kind of goes through country roads, and one's the major interstate. And all of these warnings came up that there was a blizzard warning, and I had no idea any of this was going to be happening, and I think it was kind of a surprise snowstorm for a lot of us here. So, you know, you always worry about people driving in the winter on holidays, and it turns out he made it home okay. But yeah, that was a big surprise to me. And then we ended up getting 9 inches of snow at our house. So that was quite a wintertime treat. We really did love it. You can see where I'm concentrating the paint here is, again, just on those, the areas where the divots or the molds. This is the one thing that I really like when I'm doing these voiceovers too, is to watch the playback of the painting come to fruition. Because, you know, sometimes when you're in the process and when you're creating, you're kind of a little bit too close to it to really see what's going on. Now, over here on the right side, I can see it's kind of starting to dry out. So I might end up putting some more water in. I think that's what I'm doing right now. But when you look at it, when I look at it back again, when I look at the playback to do the voiceover, it really looks like an out of focus picture coming into clarity. And I kind of started thinking about the way I paint that way, and actually it kind of helped me. Like I told you, when I very first started with watercolor, I started on that Canson XL, and I was so frustrated because none of the washes were going down really smooth for me. And then when I switched to cotton paper, it was kind of an aha moment. It's like, oh, this is what people were talking about. And then after that, it just really took off. So how about you? You guys that are watching this, did you have an aha moment when you first started to pick up watercolor? Or is this the very first video you're watching? If it is, I will suggest to you, if you're a brand new beginner with watercolor, I have a playlist that I can put a card up here in the corner. The playlist is about beginner watercolor lessons, and there's some really fun, easy things to do there. And I've done 2 series of 15 watercolor lessons that are aimed at beginners, and they'll really give you some tips and tricks that you'll need to know to be successful, because you don't want to struggle with art. You want to be successful. Now, from time to time, you'll notice I'm using a heat tool to dry my work, and you can either do that or just let it go, just walk away for a while. And I always test it to make sure it's completely dry before I'm going on with this next step, because I don't want any of these colors to bleed. Now I'm going to focus on a little bit more of the details. So I'm just got a good puddle of that burnt sienna there, and I'm just kind of trying to tone it toward the dark brown chocolate by adding some of that cobalt blue. The great thing about mixing a blue and burnt sienna, now phthalo blue doesn't quite work as well, but you can use French ultramarine blue or cobalt blue, and you can mix any level of brown to gray to a blue gray to a black, play with your mixes, play with those opposite colors on the color wheel, and see what you can come up with, because you'll really be better at your artwork if you can not rely on the convenience colors so much. Now, they're perfectly okay to use, and you can see I've got them. The convenience colors are the ones that are not red, yellow, and blue. Typically, when you mix your first watercolor palette in school, you're going to get a warm red and a cool red, a warm yellow and a cool yellow, and a warm blue and a cool blue, and you will learn to mix your colors from there. It really helps you to understand color theory a little bit better, and the best way to do it is to just get in there and play and see what your mixes can do. And you know, there are thousands and thousands of watercolors out there, and some of the mixes that are available, the multi-pigment mixes, we can get into the super granulators, the iridescent paints, even neons, all of these things that are available to us now. You know, they're convenient and they're fun to use, and I don't want to discount them at all, because they can really become part of your trademark signature when you are working on a piece. I have an artist that I follow that paints in oil, and every once in a while he'll throw in some neon pink, and it's just amazing. It is just amazing. You know, it's a color that I never would think to use, but it becomes the literal life source of his paintings, and it's just so delightful to see. And I think that's something that art should be able to do for you as you're creating it, and not just looking at it, but as you're creating it. Find yourself a way to cultivate surprise and delight. And for me, a lot of it is in subject matter. Who doesn't love chocolate, right? But creating these details and really focusing on making these edges round, not harsh, that's something that that really helps to get the shape of our Santa. And the way that we're going to do that here is to focus the pigment on the line where the dent in the mold would be, or the shape, the ridge in the mold. And then we can go back in with some water and bring that water up to that line, and it will soften it out. It will just kind of help it to distribute. See, I'm going over to the water now, and you can see I'm pulling that pigment across the hat, and by doing so, it's not as concentrated right there. So now I've gone into the paint and I'm pulling that up to create a dark area there. But when I come back in with just the water, that will help make that pigment distribute and flow and give it different gradients of color. I hope this all makes sense as I'm describing it, so that the different tones, the value tones of light and dark, that's what's going to give your subject, whatever it is you're painting, that's what's going to give it shape. If you really want a good way to practice, try painting a sphere. Just try painting a ball. Go in with your first wash, and then where would those shadows fall? Put the paint down there next, and then go in with a layer of water and just let that water touch where you've put the paint. And it will just creep ever so slightly. You'll end up with a very subtle shadow. So you'll see that technique used here everywhere that there is a change in shape in Santa's little, in his beard or in his mold. If I weren't in his features, rather, in his beard or in his other features, if I were just to leave the lines flat and then not come back and hit them with some water to help that line have a place to go, it would stay crisp and it would look two-dimensional. So part of it, yes, I do want that crisp, clean effect, but part of it, I really want it to look shaped and rounded. So as you're watching this tutorial, kind of pay attention to where I go back in with water and how I soften these lines out. Now, right now along his face and his mustache, a lot of this is really just simply filling in a lot of detail. And the other thing that I want you to notice is, do you see how I'm holding the brush? I've really kind of choked up on it like you would choke up on the bat if you're playing baseball. I'm holding it very close down to the filaments along the ferrule there, and that gives you more precise control. Trying to get the lines as thin as possible with this particular brush. And this has such a nice point to it that it's really just about perfect for this particular amount of detail here. if I wanted to do something, if you ever need to do anything that is much more detailed or it's smaller, then go with a smaller brush, because all of those brushes that are like an 03 or a 0 or even a 1, you can really get into some fine detail, particularly if you're doing eyes. These don't have a lot of definition. These eyes don't have a lot of definition in them for our chocolate Santa, so it really wasn't necessary to change the brush. But if you're finding that it's just too difficult to do what you're doing, it's totally okay to change your brush. I tend to like to hold on to the brush I've got. Like I said, I'm stubborn, and I like to use that brush for a long time before I change up. So don't hesitate to change if something's not working out for you. And here's where I'm adding some shading in, just kind of trying to show some curvature in his face and the beard. So since I don't have an actual Santa here, we do have the reference photo though. And if you have a chocolate Santa, you can certainly set one up in your on your table or wherever it is you're painting in your studio. Shine a light on it, see where the light hits it, see where the shiny parts are, and go from there. And create your own light source. That's another thing that I always like to tell my students to do, because you don't have to take the reference photo and paint it just like it is. In fact, this one I did change. I took his buckle off, and I kind of changed his proportions a little bit. I made him a little bit more short and squat. I thought that perhaps he should be a solid chocolate Santa. And wanted to make him a little bit more tasty looking. So you can see here, as I'm mixing more of that blue in with the cobalt blue with the burnt sienna, you can see that how it kind of turns gray there. And then I'll tip it more toward the brown here to just get a nice chocolate brown. And it's so fun to play with these different mixes and get the different shades that you need to come right out of your paint without having to open a new tube. So here we're just accentuating the outline around his mitten and kind of where this the shadow under his beard would fall. And we're going to go under the mitten here. I'm trying to be as conservative as possible until I get under that mitten, and that is where I put a little bit more pressure on the brush. And here you can see I'm going back in with some water to pull that line out, because this is where I'm want to give that part of his shoulder a bit of roundness to it, and I'm lifting off there just a tiny bit to leave a lighter area. And underneath, I want that mitten to cast a shadow, so that's why I pulled that the line down just a little bit so that it rested. I pressed the brush down so that it rested on his belly a little bit there. And now we're just going to go around the cuff of the mitten and create a little bit of a shadow here on the lower side of the mitten. So whatever you do, wherever the pigment is concentrated, think of that as gravity, think of that as the weight. That's where the darkness will fall, quite literally. You want to keep the lightness at the high peaks and points, and have the darker points kind of recede from there. So I think I'm going to go to a little bit of a musical interlude here. Got a couple of reasons. I feel like I'm about ready to lose my voice again. And I don't want you guys to suffer through that. But I do want you to be able to see this in real time. So let me go ahead and put some music on here, and then we'll watch Santa come to fruition. We'll meet up at the end here when we're all done. Enjoy. once you've had time to get all of those shapes and curves the way that you like them, and remember that's just by depositing the pigment and then going back in with a wet brush and pulling that pigment wherever you want it, you really want to make sure that that painting is absolutely dry. And for this next part, we're just using a white colored pencil. Now the one that I happen to have picked up here is a Derwent ChromaFlow. You can use a white Prismacolor would be really good. If you have luminance, that is a really good white. Anything that's going to give you a nice opaque white. And if you're unsure, just paint some of that same brown on a little side piece of paper and let it get really dry, and try and make some highlights over it with a white colored pencil. And if it's not working, you can always use something like a bleed-proof white in a paintbrush, or you can use a gel pen. I just like the soft look of this colored pencil. So what I'm doing is I'm just trying to kind of pick up where the highlights would kind of naturally fall on our Santa. So it's just a matter of seeing where that light hits it and having the white, the sheen of the chocolate kind of show up, and that's what you're filling in now with the white colored pencil, is those high highlights. So I will turn the music back on and you can watch this process, and hopefully this will be wonderfully relaxing for you. As always, I recommend that you sign and date your work, even if it's just in your sketchbook just for you, because you made that and you should be proud of it. Everyone, I hope that you are healthy, safe, and happy this new year, and whatever plans you have for celebrating to ring in 2024, I hope that they are full of joy. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next time. Happy painting. Bye now.